Hello,
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to
If you
meet you.
want, we can start with the interview with any problem.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay. You were one of the main architects of the Baker Plan 2 of 2003, which proposed limited autonomy followed by a referendum. In your opinion, what were the main factors that led to the failure of that proposal?
Well, I think the government of Morocco didn't really want to concede limited autonomy. They certainly didn't want to have a referendum, which is where we got started in this back in 1991. And Baker tried a number of different approaches. Obviously, the initial Security Council resolution was a referendum and nothing else, becoming part of Morocco or independence. The Moroccans didn't like that. In 1997, Baker tried a different approach, and despite Morocco and the Polisario agreeing to that, nothing happened with it. And the same thing really played out again in 2003. Although I wasn't with Baker at that point, I was in the State Department. But the real issue here is Morocco is in possession of most of the Western Sahara, and despite saying that they'd be open to different alternatives at different times, what they're counting on is sustained possession, with people finally throwing up their hands and saying, "Okay, it belongs to Morocco." Obviously, Polisario is not prepared to accept that.
Thank you. It seems that one of the major obstacles to resolving the Western Sahara conflict is the stark of imbalance of interest. Will for Morocco is almost an existential issue. For most major powers, it does not appear to be a priority. How do you assess that imbalance, and what consequences do you think it has for the progress toward a real solution?
Uh, I think at the time we created MINURSO, there was a belief that perhaps the United Nations had regained credibility, that maybe it could actually do what its founders intended in 1945. And in the aftermath of uh, throwing out Saddam Hussein's military from Kuwait, people thought, well, this is an excellent opportunity for the Middle East as a whole, Middle East and North Africa. Um, and there seemed to be a real possibility that a referendum would happen. Why not? It was a very small population. Everybody had agreed to it, but the great powers turned their eyes away from it, and Morocco has been able to stall for well over 30 years now. Um, it's very difficult to know how to change that. Certainly, the question is bigger than the Western Sahara alone. Stability in the Sahel, the many disagreements between Morocco and Argentina, the bigger picture of what Morocco wants. Does it want just the Western Sahara, or does it want part of Western Algeria and Northern Mauritania, as some Moroccan maps show? As long as there's instability in that critical region of Africa, the risk of the instability spreading elsewhere in Africa, or being taken advantage of by outsiders, or spreading to Europe remains. So there should be greater interest, in my view, from Europe, because of the proximity of the issue to them. But I don't see the European Union really changing. I think disagreements just between Spain and France alone are enough to paralyze the EU. And so as a result, the conflict continues.
What do you attribute the France historical constructive role in resolving the Western Sahara conflict to? Do you believe its alignment with Morocco could change in the future?
Well, France never very happily gave up any of its former colonies, and it has probably done a better job than any other European colonial power in maintaining close ties with the colonies. Sometimes the colonies don't like it. The former colonies don't like it so much as in much of the sub-Saharan Africa. But the French, particularly, I think, look at Morocco as being very close to them and important given the hostility that's been evident between France and Algeria really since the late 1950s, since Algerian independence. So if they lost their influence in Morocco, they would be largely without influence in North Africa as a whole, and that I think bothers them, obviously, given the geography at stake there. But the French influence has not been helpful. For a country that purports to support democracy around the world, just giving the Sawaris a chance to vote on what their status is going to be should be an easy question for France. But they've never really supported it, notwithstanding that they voted for the original Security Council resolution.
Mhm. In this line, do you believe that the absence of a clear mandate for human rights monitoring within MINURSO has harmed the process? Do you think that this could change or should change?
Well, I think when we created MINURSO, we really expected it would be a short-term assignment. It was pretty clear. You verify the Spanish census of 1975. You set up the polling mechanisms, which the UN had done very successfully in Namibia in 1989, in Namibia's first election, and so the idea that it would be around other than to maintain peace and security, a secure environment for the referendum, and that it would ensure that the referendum was free and fair, which is a human rights issue. Uh, Honestly, we didn't give any thought to a larger mandate because we didn't think it would be there that long. I think in light of the history, there's certainly a very strong argument now or long before now, to expand the mandate, which I'm sure the Moroccans would resist. But I think there is language in there now that you could use to um, perhaps to build on the mandate, but that would also require a stronger Secretary General and a stronger Secretariat than exists at this point.
Also, what is your view of the current situation in Western Sahara, both politically and from the humanitarian perspective, and the long-standing conflict between Morocco and the Sahrawi people?
Well, I think the worst aspect of it is that the bulk of the Sawaris who are not actually in the Western Sahara are in refugee camps around Tindouf, and they've been there for a long time. There's been a lot of international assistance, but as budgets get tightened, as the U.S. contributions to things like the World Food Program diminish, that puts great pressure on the Sawaris, the Polisario, to keep up standards. And it's just outrageous that they can't go back into their own country and to do a simple thing like vote, which could resolve what the status is going to be one way or the other. So that really should be the UN's focal point to say, look, we set this up now almost 35 years ago, and we have not accomplished the mission, which is the referendum in the Western Sahara. We expect this is going to be done soon because these people deserve to return to a stable environment. But sadly, again, the UN leadership doesn't seem willing, has not seemed willing to take this up.
Mhm. If you were in the position of the Polisario Front, what strategies would you pursue to advance the progress without giving up the principle of self-determination through a referendum? What concrete steps could help to unlock the situation?
Well, I think Polisario for quite some time has done a very good job in keeping Western governments informed about what the situation is. I think within the African Union, they've kept basically unanimity on the position that the referendum is the way to go. It's hard to know what they could do more other than say, let the people have a vote. That's purely a process point. They're not insisting on substantive concessions by Morocco just to do what they said they agreed to in 1991. So I think it's a very difficult position that they're in. The Moroccans are now putting out information about Iranian infiltration and things like that. And, it's gotten some attention. I first went there uh, 22 or 23 years ago. There was no evidence of it then. There are American non-governmental organizations working in the camps. There's no evidence of it now. But it's just Polisario and their supporters have just been in a difficult position, not through any fault of their own, but because of the circumstance they find themselves in.
Mhm. In line of this, in the recent years, in the last months, they have been talking a lot about this is the Moroccan efforts to discredit and demonize the Polisario Front in the international area. From your experience, how do you assess those tactics, and what impact do you think they had in the peace process and in the global perception of the conflict?
Well, I think there have been a number of steps that Morocco's taken to try and discredit the Polisario. They've all been shown to be untrue under really intense international scrutiny for a long time, with observers from different UN organizations, the Red Cross and others, non-governmental organizations in the camps all the time. It's hard to imagine they could have done anything better. And I think they've always participated in the negotiations in good faith. The only thing that I've suggested that nobody's been willing to try is uh, to say, look, the UN mission, as I mentioned a moment ago, obviously was to conduct a referendum. There's no evidence that's ever going to happen. We should abolish MINURSO, and we can worry about what happens to the truce, but it seems to me at some point, if the parties aren't willing to carry out the referendum, there's no other point for MINURSO to be there, and maybe that would shock people back into some recognition that we need a permanent, fair solution, because keeping the Sawaris in the refugee camps is not an acceptable solution.
Mhm. Also, do you think there is any way to resolving the conflict without resorting the Chapter 7 of the United Nations Charter?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, nobody wants to see conflict in Northwest Africa, but uh, the Polisario have tried everything else. I think they've observed the terms of the ceasefire far better than the Moroccans have over a long period of time. And I'm sure they don't want to go back to conflict either. But I don't know what the alternative is, and that seems to me to be something, their forbearance in trying to get their own homeland to have a chance to decide what the people there want to do. Uh, should have counted a lot more in the United Nations, and it's really reveals a fundamental weakness in the organization. It's something this simple can't be accomplished. We're not talking about a referendum in a country with 50 million people in it, and yet over 35 years we've not been able to accomplish it.
And for finish, what do you believe that people with your experience and profile, who are well familiar with the issue and have had the direct responsibilities, can still play a relevant role in advancing a just and lasting solution?
Well, I think it's been made more difficult for Americans to do that with Trump's decision at the end of his first term to recognize Morocco's claim to sovereignty, which was done as a part of Morocco's Abraham Accord agreement with Israel. It was a big mistake. I think the Moroccans would have signed an Abraham Accord with Israel without regard to the Western Sahara. But Trump doesn't know anything about it. Jared Kushner didn't know anything about it. So now that the U.S. position is, even Biden didn't reverse it, which kind of surprised me. People still say, yes, we favor the referendum, but once you've given away the result by recognizing Moroccan sovereignty, it's hard to be taken seriously. So I think it would require a different American president. But I think what we did 1991 was very simple and straightforward. It said, give these people a vote on what their future is going to be. It was not, this is not a referendum to split a country in two. It never was one country. And the principle of self-determination goes back to Woodrow Wilson, and everybody talks about it when it's good for them. They don't talk about it when it's not good for them. Spanish Sahara was obviously different than the colony of Morocco under France for a long period of time, and to ignore that history really is totally unfair.
Thank you very much, Ambassador.